So this is the lava section here in part 2 of our video update. And the lava posed a unique challenge because I wanted to have the lava look good both in its lit state as well as normal daylight viewing or normal room light viewing. That was not easy to achieve. And basically what I did is I had a test section of the lava, and then I spent probably 5 hours testing color schemes for it, and basically would paint the lava, throw it over some test lights, take a look at it, strip the paint back off with acetone, paint it again, strip it back off, paint it again. And this is the end. This is the color scheme that I've ended up with. I took a look at quite a few lava videos and pictures in preparation of this, and what I'd like to do is show you some of those pictures that and videos that I looked at, and then we can come back to this. So in taking a look at these videos for lava flows, I was looking at a variety of things. One, what's the proportion of cooled magma on the surface? Two, how much are the bright areas represented and how even are they overall? And then 3, what does the cooled lava look like on the sides of the flow? And what I noticed is that there's quite a variety. Here where it's emerging, it's quite hot. Here where it's, far away from the start of the flow, you have a lot of cooled magma on the top. Obviously that varies as it flows and what kinds of conditions it's in, but it started to give me some ideas about some of those yellows and oranges that I might try working towards. And here I started to look at some of the cooled lava and also adjacent to the flow. You have some pillowy effects, some very coarse, that's what I'm looking for, very coarse textured cooled magma. And then again, looking at some of those oranges, and here it just kind of looks cool, but it was too complicated for me to model. But again, you get that sense of there being a relatively high proportion of dark areas on the surface of the lava. I shouldn't say frequently, but they can be present. And I think that was going to help in terms of modeling it, as I needed some really darker textures to help with the light coming through it. Here's another great shot of showing some of those darker areas. And a shot like that is just giving you a nice sense of some of those yellows, even though it's a little overexposed in these night shots. But still, you can get a sense of where the cooled magma is, and how it's flowing downhill, since the lava flow on the piece really has a waterfall and probably is not modeled correctly for that fall, but at least I can get a sense of the fact that things, as they move away from the major flow, begin to cool off pretty heavily. And this last photo is the one that I really used to model it on, as it has a lot of darker areas on the top with some alternating hot spots and oranges in the hotter areas, and that gave a nice visual interest, but is overall relatively uniform throughout the flow. So that gives you some ideas of the way lavas can appear, and of course there are a huge number of variations in the color schemes that they can take on. But in order to get that matching appearance of looking good both lit and unlit, I ended up going with a fairly dark motif, a lot of cooled magma on the top, a few bright points. This painting technique was done with airbrushing, some washes, and some individual picking out, using a combination of transparent, opaque paints, including painting some of the back with a shade to help diffuse the light. And the entire lava is mounted over a diffuser that's spaced a couple inches above the LEDs, I should say an inch above the LEDs. So there's quite a bit of things going on with this piece built into this, and I actually had to open this up quite a bit to be able to receive this sort of superstructure behind it sinking in. And I actually shot a video of the mold of this piece, and if I can use it, I will put up that at some point in the future, as I tried to make a tutorial on exactly how I cast this. But in a very simple sense, let's come up really close on this and I'll show you the texture in real detail. So here we see a close-up of the lava texture, And basically what I had to do to achieve this, this material is we'll talk about this edge in a second. This material is a urethane rubber from Smooth On. I believe it's Vitaflex 20, which is a semi-transparent rubber. It's pretty transparent. And what I used, based on a recommendation from one of the distributor assistants, oh gosh, what is her title? I'm not sure. Perhaps a sales person or something like that. She visited me, and we were talking about how to use this material. And I used an accelerator called Kick It with it that would set up this rubber in about 30 minutes, really, rather than the several hours that it would take normally for it to become mostly cured. And what I did then is, as it was curing, I basically worked the material with a popsicle stick to create the texture and push in some of this texture, the recessed areas, and basically worked it relatively quickly because it sets pretty fast. You only have the middle of the working time. Oh, excuse me, I'm using the tripod here in a new way, so I'm not fluent in moving it like this. There we go. Let's see how that is. But in any case, that allowed me to create, the ridges and the recesses that you see in here in using a material without having to create a mold of this texture. This is basically an organic sculpt in the rubber as the rubber was setting up. So that was some work, to be sure, but what's nice about it is it does give it a very original, organic feel, and it would be something. Of course, you could mold this after you sculpted it into the rubber, but I think in retrospect, this is a technique that I will probably be able to improve upon later. And one of the things that I really liked about it, let's see here. All right. And I think if I, be patient with me here. New tripod, new techniques. And let's see if I can pan back just a little bit. And I don't know, well actually, I'm going to power it up with the, and we're going to talk about the power system for this later on. And that's obviously not very bright. I'll show you the bright setting in a second. But I was able to start creating some streaks. I wanted this falling down and having more of a falling appearance, and I wasn't quite able to achieve that. But you can see, some motion starting to form, and I think in future iterations I will be able to create a better movement in the texture of the lava, overall in general. But really, really liked the feel of this piece as it came out, and was pleased with it. This is actually a third attempt, as I had a couple test pieces that I practiced on before going to the final version. So before we leave the lava, I wanted to give you a chance to see it in all of its lighted variations, there being two, actually. And basically, the first iteration here is off of the main battery pack for this. And again, we'll talk about the lighting electronics in a second, in the third segment of this update. But here it is off. And there it is on. Now you can see that actually isn't a very big change in its overall brightness, and I was, let's just put it this way, I was extremely disappointed with that. I had done some testing before I installed it. I thought it was going to be brighter. It didn't come out as bright as I wanted. And one of the things I learned is that I wired all of the LEDs really improperly. And I'll show you a picture of the LED setup right here. And, looking at it, you can see, dozens of bulbs. Literally, I have, I forget, I want to say there's over 30 bulbs under here for two different effects. But I wired them all in parallel on the same parallel line with a single resistor at the end of that chain. And that's a mistake because the bulbs have various milliamp draws. They also have a few different voltage draws, so I just went with the lowest one, and that really, I think, is compromising the ultimate brightness of some of them. But I also did a measurement of the voltage, not the voltage, the they are millicandelas of all of these bulbs, and when I did all of the addition, I realized they are really, really not even where I needed to be to match the brightest bulbs that are under here, which are the really big ones, and they are 220,000 each millicandelas, and they make a whole world of difference. So that is basically the overall effect I was hoping for in terms of its static brightness, and then to have the cascading effect that you see there be a basically its own effect overlaying the brightness. Through some wiring of the electronics, I'll show that again in the third segment, I was able to accidentally create this effect, and this effect is much more what I was originally aiming for. And the nice thing is this is a pretty bright effect. It casts a slight shadow when it has the highest value pulse coming down it, and you can see it there, I think, and that really, I think I was overall pleased with the at least the overall brightness once I had done it. But I have 10 200,000 millicandela bulbs for this effect, and all combined, so 10 200,000 is 2.2 million, right? And then all the other lights combined that are the original lights I showed with this off, they are only coming up to maybe a third of that value, and you can see the difference that produces, not very significant. So in any case, there's the look at the lava and its different forms. And really, again, stressing the major goal was to have it look good in both iterations, and I think the effect when it's lit is really nice as you still maintain some of those dark areas to give it the effect that it's cooling on the top, but it does make the brighter lower lying lava much more impressive, if you will, to look at it. And as a final quick comment, because I'm getting rambly and perhaps repetitive, the areas that you see along it are the initial steps to create some cooled lava banks around it. That way it'll look like it's been in a channel for a while and some of the magma has been accumulating along the sides and cooling. That's a work in progress at this point. It's not quite ready, but it's something that I think will add a lot to the piece when it's done.